Hello, my name is Eric Banson, subject matter expert for I Get It at Tata Technologies. And today I will be talking about the basic approach to NX PMI, or Product and Manufacturing Information. Now, in this session, I will talk about how to learn to enable and use PMI in NX. We'll explore the user interface of PMI and some of its features, and create some dimensions and annotations using PMI features and commands. So let's begin. Product and Manufacturing Information, or PMI, is an application that provides tools to add dimensions, annotations, and symbols to a 3D model to document products in a 3D environment. Basically, you are taking 2D drafting measurements and notations and placing them on a 3D model, which is then delivered to a customer or manufacturer for review. With this approach, there is no need for drawings. Now, before we begin, the PMI application must be active to access the tools and commands that we're going to use. So to do that, there's a couple ways of activating this application. One is to select the File tab, and if you come down here, you'll see we have PMI. The other is to go to the Application tab at the top, and if we come over to the Document group and select Toolbox, in the drop down we'll see that we have PMI. You can place a check within the box to activate it, and notice we have now PMI tab up at the top. Next, let's open a part. Go to File, Open, and let's go ahead and select a certain part. Now, this is an example of a model with PMI features. Here you can see dimensions, GD&T notations, and symbols placed on the model. I'll zoom in here and let you take a look and see three-dimensionally how this looks. Now, in the resource bar, there's a tab called the Model Based Definition, or MBD. I'm going to go ahead and select on it right here. Here you're going to find a PMI node shown right here, and under that you'll see the annotation and dimension. If I open these up, notice that these are all the PMI features that are on this particular 3D model. Now, if I move up to the standard node and open that up, notice I have the different views of the model. If I select on them, actually I can double click using the left mouse button, and I will get that. Not only when I double click on them, you'll see that the model is in its work view. Now, another thing to notice is that if I hover over using my cursor, you notice I get a informational window that describes the view. It's a bottom view, and it says description bottom. Now, if I hover over this one, notice this one says front, and it says contains PMI. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to left mouse double click on it, and now this is my work displayed view, and notice in this view we have placed PMI features and notes and annotations on the model. Now I can go ahead and go through all of these and just hover over, and this one here, the right, I'm going to double click. Notice this right view displays more PMI features. And if we come down to the Trimetric, notice that this is the original view that we had. This one also contains the PMI annotations and measurements. Now, one other way we can see these, if we go back to the Part Navigator, and if we go into the Model Views node, and we go ahead and we can also select in that. If I left mouse double click and make the right view my work view, Notice I also have displayed the PMI features. If I go to front view, that as well, and here there's nothing. Now the reason why we put them in different views, because it's a useful way of organizing the PMI features. Now let's go ahead and move on to the PMI dimensioning. Now when I create the dimension, I'm going to use a different model. I'm going to go ahead and use this one right here. Now before we begin with creating a dimension in PMI, you always want to make sure that the PMI application is active. You want to go up to the top to make sure that you see the PMI tab. And inside the tab, we're going to go ahead and you can see that the dimension commands are located in the dimension group. Now I'm not going to go through all of these, but you can go through all of them when you take the course. Now next I want to go to the resource bar. And then here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the MBD or Model Based Definition Navigator tab. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the standard node to view the different views. Now before creating the dimension, we want to check to see which model view is the work view, because the PMI feature you're going to create will be added to that particular work view. In this case, I want to add the dimension to the Trimetric View. So this one here, which is already considered the work view as it shows here and it's displayed. I want to also notice that there is no PMI node yet. This is because there are no PMI objects or features for this model. Once I make the first PMI feature, a PMI node will display just under the standard node. And the feature I create will be listed in the PMI node, and it will be in the Trimetric View, which is the work view. So now I'm going to select the rapid dimension. And if you notice that the rapid dimension dialog is nearly the same as the rapid dimension command used in drafting applications. The rapid dimension is basically a quick method of creating a dimension where the type is inferred. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to create the rapid dimension between these two circles. So up at the top we have our references, and here I'm going to select for the first object, I'm going to hover over this hole here until the center highlights, and I'm going to go ahead and select it, and we have the arc center. I'll select it up there, and now I'm going to select the second object and I'm going to select that here. And now notice here I get this particular dialog, which will allow me to put information inside of it that is into the PMI. And it appears every time I stop moving the dimension. So if I move it over here, you'll see it reappears. But as I start to move the dimension, it disappears. Now, the next part we have to do is we want to figure out where we want to place the dimension on what plane or origin. So we can specify a location, which is where we want to put it on the plane. And we can also then specify the plane itself. Now we can go here to specify the plane, or I can use an alternate plane. And if we look closely, I'll zoom in here, you can see that we have a dashed line, and then we have this solid line, and these are the planes that it's giving me an alternate to choose from by default. So if I select this under alternate plane and select this particular button, notice now the plane that's shaded, I'm back in, but this is now here, and the one that we were previously on is now the dashed line. So for this instance, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select and stay on this particular plane. And if you look also, we have, it has made associated objects. It selected the two objects in the model, and our method for the measurement is inferred. If I drop down, we can also change that if you want to any of these of, say, horizontal, vertical, or point to point. But for this instance, I'm going to leave it as inferred. Now, the next portion is that we can, when I stop moving, I can then slide my cursor up over into this dialog box here, where it's going to give me all these different choices to change and edit the actual rapid dimension that you see right there. Now up here we have this drop down menu. This is the method. Next we have the alternate plane, and then here we have the tolerance type, which I can change here. Here for this instance I'm going to go no tolerance. Next we have the inspect. If we want to make this an inspection dimension, we'd select that. Next we have the orientation of the text. So I can select how I want to place the text within the dimension. And then we have here is we have the edit appended text. And this is for an expanded capability. You would select this. So if I select on this, notice I get this dialog, which is very long. And if I don't want to do anything with it, I can just go ahead and hit close, and I'm back to my rapid dimension. Now we see you have text boxes above, before, after, and below our dimension. Here you can enter any type of appended text, again, above, before, after, or below the dimension itself. Now the center is the dimension, and these are the decimal places of the dimension. Now here we have it set to 3. I'm going to go ahead and place that to 2. And down here we have is the reference. If we want to make this a reference dimension, we would select this button here. And then over here we have text settings. If I go ahead and select on that, here I can change the text settings, and it gives me all these different topics and how to do that. If I want to change the lettering with the alignment, tolerance, the stacking, tolerance here, we have a dual to show a dual dimension, style for format, and then we get into the text itself. We can change the units. We have orientation again, and we can change it. And these are very similar to the ones of the dialog that we were just talking about. If I go down to format, dimension text, now here I can change the actual color. So if I select on this, I'm going to select black, select OK. Now that's changed. And if I go to close, now we can't see the color just yet. When we finish changing things on our rapid dimension, then we can take a look and see what we have. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to select and place right here in the center. And notice now our dimension with the text is black. Now if I want to change the rest of the dimension lines or the arrows, I can go in and select on them. Oops. Let's first close that out, and I'm going to actually go back. Oh, let's first take a look at this before going back and editing those lines. What I'd like to show is the MBD Navigator. Notice now we have the PMI node. As I spoke before, there wasn't one, now there is. And now if I open this up, we'll see that we have a dimension, and we can see that it's a linear dimension. And if I select on it, it's highlighted in our model. Now I'm going to go ahead, and if I right click on it, I can edit, I can hide it, or I can even delete it. I can change the settings from here and everything else. I'm going to go ahead and go back to edit, because what I want to show you here is, now we get everything the same as before, but if you notice, we have these little spheres, and if I hover over them, notice that I get another. If I actually select on it, it'll turn blue. And if I bring that up here, I can change my arrows to in and out. Now, another thing you can do is you can change, if you want to just, we have what is a synchronize both sides. If I select that, the synchronize is off. So if I select out, notice only this particular arrowhead is now out and the other one is still in. Now, if I place it back and I go ahead and select synchronize both sides, there they go together now. Both sides will go in and out when I select. I can also change the arrowhead itself right here. And then also I can go into arrow line settings, which I will, because here we're going to change the color. Now here we have the arrowhead, the arrow line, and here we can make any kind of edits to it. We can change the stub even. If I want to make a change to just one color, if I come up to scope, I want to then unselect or take the check out of the box, and I can now make one arrow line side a different color than the other. But if I want to make them both the same color at the same time, kind of like synchronizing, I would select the scope to apply to entire dimension. And now I'm going to go ahead and select the color box. I'm going to select black and select OK. And once I'm kind of happy with all of that, I can close it. And I can also do the same thing here. If you notice, I have these nodes back here. If I select on them, that will change the colors for these lines. Also, I can come back, and if I select our dimension itself, if I select on that node in the center, it brings this dialog box back up. And if you can see the arrows here, I can actually extend the arrows, or actually the lines to the arrows, with the little arrowheads within it. And we can create a gap, and we can place a number within the gap as well. Now the next thing is I want to change these line colors, I know. So if I select this node here, notice again I get another little dialog box to synchronize both sides. I can change the jog if I want one side or the other using the synchronize. I can then also edit the extension lines. If I go in here, here's the extension line. My scope is applied to entire dimension. So if I select one of these boxes to change the color, I'll select black. And again, now once I'm happy with that, this should all be in a black color dimension. And there it is. Now go ahead, if I move it, you can see that it's in 3 dimensions on this part. Now next, let's go ahead and look into creating annotation or notes. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this exact same model. Now we're going to create an annotation, or simply called a note. It's located in the annotation group of the PMI tab, which we are in. And here it is right here, note. I'm going to go ahead and select on it. And I'm going to bring this down so we can see this. Now you'll immediately see a preview and a prompted to place the note. If you notice, I'll have again these different defaulted planes that I can place them on, and that's under orientation right here under origin. And what it's doing is it's looking for a place to place it on this plane, which is the shaded one. The other ones, which are options, are the dashed line ones. And if I go ahead and go to alternate plane, now notice it's on this particular plane. If I select again, here it is on the back plane. We can also specify the plane by selecting here with a coordinate system dialog. But for this instance, and considering time constraints, I'm going to go ahead and just place it on this particular one. And there I created it. So if we take a look, I have it. It's under PMI node. We're back in the Model-Based Definition Navigator. If we look under PMI, here is the Annotation node. I'm going to open that, and there it is. And I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to edit it so that we can then kind of go through some of the features and how to place some other commands or features on the text. Now, first thing is a leader. And we're going to highlight this, which it is, select terminating object. Now, if I come over here and I select a line, you notice that I will get points that will appear, arcs, circles and such, and that is letting me know that these are able to select to place my leader. So if I want to say select to the dimension we just did, I'll select that center of that circle, and there we go. And you can see that we placed that particular leader right to that point where we can maybe add some text to. And if we look, we can also specify the jog position, which is I can move this arrowhead. You can see this, I can move this, and I can actually, if I select on it, I can also put it in a much more precise value when I select on it. Now next we have a type, so we can change the type of a leader with this drop down. And if we go down further, we can also change the text input, where we can edit the text. We have formatting, where we can change the actual font of the text, the size. We also can change the text itself right here. We can bold it and do all the things here. We can also go into symbols and add symbols, and we have categories. So if I select drafting, notice I can go to GD&T. We can do custom. We have relationships. You can even import and export your text from a file. And if we come down here, now we have more settings. And if I go ahead and I select on the settings, I have my note settings. We have the lettering. Again, I can change the color. Go ahead and make that black to match the other one. And then we also have the line and arrowhead, which we can change because of the leader, that is, so we can change that as well. And notice that I have the check in applied to entire annotation, so it's the scope, so everything then will turn black. If I go ahead and close that, and we also have again a bold and thickness, which you can change from medium to thick, and you even have alignment for the text. Now I go ahead and close that. Notice now our text is now black, which then matches the dimension. We are working in the Trimetric View, which is the work view. So if I go back up to our part navigator and I go into our model views here and I select, say, a right view as my work view, I don't see anything. If I go to isometric as well, you won't see that, but if I go to trimetric, there is the PMI where we placed it. And don't worry, if you turn it and you see it backwards, it will automatically flip to the proper view so that you can read the annotation or the dimension properly. So we went through everything. In summary, we talked about where we can find the PMI under File and Application. We also looked at placing a dimension, and we also looked at placing an annotation or note to our 3D model. So with that, I encourage you to visit the I Get It website. Please take a look at our offerings within NX and other CAD software courses. You might be interested in something else, and go ahead and take a look around. We have a lot of more offerings. And thank you for attending today's session.